Well, welcome back again this week to another analysis behind the news. Just came out with our new edition on the New American Magazine, which covered the United Nations Climate Summit in Paris. We sent a team there to interview and video what was going on. And this edition is chock full of articles on that. The actual date on the magazine is January 4, 2016. And you can send for that through Shop JBS or call us here at headquarters and order a copy or many copies to circulate around to your friends. One of the things that we show in the articles that this is a means to build a world government under socialism. And that's really what it's all about. If you go to any particular communist bookstore around the country, there are many of them, and you'll find that they spend at least a third of their propaganda on the environmental movement, trying to get more and more youth and leftists involved in that movement because it builds regulation. It builds government regulation. And that's really what it's all about, isn't it? If the government regulates business and people and land and so on and water, whatever it is, that ultimately is socialism, isn't it? It may be varying in degrees, what you may call that form of socialism, fascism, Nazism, socialism, or communism, or whatever. It is government regulation, it's control over all of these things that is the essence of socialism. So you'll find little buttons like this in communist bookstores, which I picked up in one communist bookstore in my travels. You can't read it from there, but it says, capitalist system, not fit to be caretakers of the planet. The whole idea is that capitalism must go in order to save the world, to save the planet. And part of that is to become an international government under communism, militant socialism, to save the world we're on. It's one of those crises that they're trying to get people all a-tither over that really does not exist, to react them into a solution that is terrible for the future of the planet, for the future of people, even for the future of animals. You will not find any of these things flourishing well under a communist state. Animals, the economy, people, so on and so forth, all suffer under such systems. But at any rate, visit your local communist bookstore and verify that for yourself if you live in a major metropolitan area that happens to have one. And if you don't, you more than likely have some outlet within your city that for leftist literature, and you'll find that they are very much involved in the environmental movement. Indeed, at the grassroots, they control it without question. At the upper echelon, it's controlled by what we call the insiders, the masters of a conspiracy to bring about a new world order, a one world government, to be ruled by them, not you and me. Another thing that's happened that is of no surprise is that since we started talking about how the Republican Party would not allow a true independent individual, a constitutionalist or a true conservative, to ever be elected as president of the United States. They will talk about having oaths and all of that and making people sign things saying, yes, I am a Republican, or yes, I will support the Republican nominee no matter who he is, which I could never do. But at any rate, behind the scenes, while they make the honest people sign these pledges, they themselves are working to scuttle any idea of a Republican candidate getting the nomination that they don't control. And it's all done behind the scenes. It's not out front. It's done at the state levels rather than the national level. At the national level, people are watching too closely with social media and everything else. They can't get away with it. But at the state level, behind the scenes, through party manipulation at the conventions and the rules being changed and all of that from state to state, they can control the nominees from those states. You don't have to do much more than to look at the history of what happened to Ron Paul in this regard, which I talked about on an earlier broadcast, to discover this is true. Since we've talked about it, we've started getting reports of little changes here and there, making it more difficult for a non-established candidate to make it through to the nomination process. In addition, we see that Ryan and company, as leader of the House, Speaker of the House of Representatives, has delivered up to the socialists everything their little heart desired. Through the Omnibus spending bill, they have given them Planned Parenthood again. They have given them full funding for the Obamacare. They have done any number of things like that the people do not want, even the governors. They've even funded the refugee program that Obama wanted, when the majority of the governors of this country have stated, we do not want this refugee program being implemented in our states. And yet the Republican leadership delivered all of these things to the left. And there are a number of people who are very, very upset over this. It remains to be seen whether they're going to do much about it. The idea of a third party, regrettably, ladies and gentlemen, a third party will not work. And I know I've got people right there, right now, screaming at me at the screen, because they belong to third parties. But a third party that would get any serious traction would be infiltrated and subverted so quickly it'd make your head swim. I've seen it happen time after time. Because what does every party need? It needs manpower and it needs money. And the insiders have both. And they can very quickly get inside a campaign or a party and scuttle it if they want to. The thing is, too, that surprisingly, that the Omnibus bill also increased the funding for the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. Now, the left is really quite glad over this development, because its ostensive purpose is to help underdeveloped countries and countries that are in trouble, to bail them out under certain conditions so that they can build their economy and get their feet from back underneath them and go forward. Now that's its ostensive purpose, to help these countries in trouble. But they've even taken well-established countries like Argentina and others and literally destroyed their economies by monetary manipulation through their rules. This is what happened, again, in Argentina, that led to communists taking over the government of Argentina. They're starting to come out of that now. But this is what happened and provided the basis for a great upheaval in the economy and society, to where they would look to and vote for anyone that promised them to bail them out, to improve the economy or whatever. And that's what the IMF does. It gets in there and, under the purpose of saving countries, literally destroy them sociologically and politically and pave the way for socialism. Oh, by the way, the left really likes what's going on in the IMF now, because now they've got China participating. Now that China is contributing money, they are having a bigger voice on the board of the IMF. So you have a communist government having a bigger say on the board of this International Monetary Fund, ostensibly to help out the underprivileged or underdeveloped countries. This is not going to do any of us any good in the future relative to whether or not they help countries, or whether or not China will become a bigger factor in deciding which countries get the money, which countries don't, how it's used, and so on and so forth. It does not bode well for the future of these underdeveloped countries. Between the IMF, with China having a vote on there, and China going in and buying up minerals, giving loans to these countries, their influence is growing to a tremendous degree. That doesn't bode well for us as well in the future. Until next week, we'll see you then.